My war on Flock continues. The CEO of Flock just came out and said that Americans are like children and they need to be watched by an all-seeing eye so they don't misbehave. That is the most Orwellian, dystopian thought logic I've ever heard of in my life. Take a listen.
People want to jump to let's just punish people and that will teach them. But if we look at our kids as a proxy, like the level of punishment, whether you're in timeout for 5 minutes or an hour, doesn't matter to a 5-year-old. They do something because they think they're going to get away with it. And as soon as they find out that as a parent, you have all-seeing eyes, they stop doing bad things. And the punishment has nothing to do with it. And maybe it's unfair to call an adult a 5-year-old, but that's generally how our brain works.
Okay, so that's what he's saying, right? He says that we all are like children who need to be monitored to behave and to not commit crimes, right? And I don't think that's true whatsoever, because we already have environments where people are monitored all the time. There's a rule book this big and people still commit crimes. It's the same token as, okay, let's take all the guns away and then there will be no more violent crime. How has that worked out? How has that worked out, Chicago? How has that worked out, England? There's still violent crime, and there's still gonna be criminals that do the crime. Okay? That's just how society is, unfortunately. Nobody likes it. It's not a good thing, but it is what it is. This tech state, of course, wants every corner monitored. And when they first came out, they were marketed as just license plate readers, right? Okay, so why are Flock cameras popping up in biking trails and hiking trails in middle of nowhere random areas, right? Why are they in these spots? Because they want to watch you constantly. Now, is everything being monitored 24/7? Could that potentially prevent some crime or help solve some crime? Yes, I'm not going to lie to you, it can. But that's such a slippery slope that I'm not willing to go down. Because I know at the end of the day, it's not going to stop crime. It's not going to stop all the bad things in the world, because that's just not how we operate. Going back to his point of, you have to treat everybody like children, and children don't ever behave, if they get put in a timeout or if there's other forms of punishment. They only behave if they're under constant surveillance. Okay. Well, first off, I would say to that is, how did anybody 1990s and back, how did they all operate? How did they all grow up normally? How did they all grow up in a decent household and not turn out to be a giant piece who turns out to be a criminal and never behaved and never listened to their parents? Because there wasn't constant monitoring. There wasn't all-seeing eyes. I mean, back then, parents would just be like, all right, go run out for the rest, the whole day. Come back when it gets dark. There was no monitoring back then. And people and kids turned out fine. I would say even a lot better than today with constant technology in the palm of their hand. And what I think that comes down to is respect, and respect for your elders, respect for your fellow neighbors, and just humans in general. There is no respect anymore between people, between, the children having respect for their parents. Everybody they just want to do things for clicks if they're a little bit old enough. And I think that's the bigger problem issue here for that aspect of what, he was talking about in his quote of, it's a respect game. And nobody has respect. There's no discipline. There's no accountability. And we've become a society that for some reason almost punishes discipline or punishes any sort of responsibility for your actions. You get called certain names, or you get labeled this, or you get labeled that. So parents and teachers and just everybody, stop speaking up and saying things, and the degradation of society continues. That's why back in the day, especially, in like 70s, 80s time frame, you could, if you were a kid and you had a problem, You could go to your neighbor's house that you didn't know and they would still help you out. Or if somebody was seeing something on the street or in public, you would probably get help. But that's just not the case anymore. Everybody is kind of out for themselves and doesn't want to get involved. And, there is some reason to that, unfortunately, with the sue happy nature of everybody. And, you think you're doing a modest, good thing, and then somebody yells at you and says that you're, what's wrong with you type of culture. So I think that's the root issue to that point. But try not to get too off track. Getting back to the flock surveillance grid. Look at all the crime that isn't solved with flock all over the place, right? All the actual serious crimes, not some BS traffic law or something like that. Look at all the children that are still missing, that are constantly being trafficked, and human trafficking for that matter. Think of all the drug smuggling. Where are these people getting held up? Where are the big stories about flock busting them? No, it's only about flock surveilling, the local guy in your town for doing nothing, A, or B, completely misinterpreting it like we've talked about before, and accusing that guy of a crime when he wasn't even there potentially. It just thinks that, they had a similar car. Oh, you must be part of this crime, like in the previous videos that we talked about. And what does this surveillance state really boil down to here? Is it really the tripe that they try to tell you of they just want more cameras everywhere to prevent crime? Is it the adage of they want to catch more bad guys with these? Is it even just simply to keep the streets safer? I don't believe it's any of those. I firmly believe that this is part of the grand scale that the powers that be who run this country, unfortunately, are implementing. And this will all tie into a social credit score, where you will be judged on every single one of your actions, every single one of your outbursts, every single one of your ideas, opinions. It will be wrapped up into a social credit score, which will be attached to you. Either we'll get to a point where we have technology in us, or, everybody always has their phone on them anyways. So that's how they will be able to implement it. And you will not be able to buy or sell without having a high enough credit system. Does that sound familiar? What does that sound like? So this surveillance state is never a good idea. It's going to be like China, except even worse as technology progresses and the control gets tighter. It will be like these movies you see, video games you play, that Black Mirror episode that put it so perfectly. That's how anybody will care about is your credit score. They don't actually care about you as a person. They're basically just going to judge you on purely your mistakes or just misrepresentations, something that you didn't even say, but you're accused of. Anything like that, that's what you're going to be judged upon. So in these times, we always have to think logically, not emotionally. If you are an American, you need to value your privacy, your security, your semblance of freedom, your liberty. And every time you give any sort of power an inch, they will take a mile and you will never get it back. So that's why you have to stop it from becoming a thing in the first place. And when they tell you that these are a good thing and they're for your safety and they're doing this to keep the public safe, just remember that I've said many, many times that that's not the true reason. These entities, they're demonic, and there's always smoke and mirrors playing here. There's always the real reason on this hand, and then they're playing with you, talking to you to this hand, not really telling you what's going on in the background. And what's going on in the background is that complete surveillance state where you have no control of your life anymore. And also there's a big aspect of not just the surveillance and privacy state, but the money aspect of it. Power and money corrupt. And Flock is it's not a nonprofit. They're a for-profit business, and there's a lot of money floating around here. So where does that money, so when you have somebody that's trying to push down a point of point A, there's point B of what they really care about is the money. That's what they really care about here, and the power. And also, we know that they have these databases. So on top of the flock system making money, they're turning around and selling your data. And don't believe for one second that they're not, because data is one of the top commodities in our society right now. So when there's money involved, you can never trust what's coming out of said person's mouth or the narrative at all. Just remember that. And a great example of what's happening right now to counter all this is, in today's day and age, people record themselves committing the crime because they want to get attention or set an example, or this and that excuse. There's that story going on around right now of that black guy recording himself going around and punching and beating the crap out of white women. He's recording himself and posting it while committing the crime. So once again, people are going to commit crimes and they're going to brag about it. And if you're a good criminal, you're going to evade those anyway. So it's just, once again, for the normal person, it F's you over. Just like gun laws. Again, that I'm going to come back to. Gun laws just screw the good guy. And it just makes it harder for us to enjoy them. Same thing with the surveillance state. It's just going to screw us over when the actual criminals are not going to stop. They're going to keep on criminaling, So that's a prime example of how this is just a BS thought process, an excuse. So once again, to reiterate, the Flock CEO came out and said that Americans are like children. You have a brain of a 5-year-old. And you need to be watched 24/7. When you don't have any sort of criminal past, you still need to be watched, because the only reason why you're not committing a crime is because you think you're being watched. It's literally thought crime is what he's talking about. So I want to know what you guys think. Drop a comment. Let me know. What do you think about this quote? We've already kind of talked about flock cameras, but what do you think about this quote? Leave a comment on what I had to say. And I appreciate you guys watching Cigars and Coffee. We'll catch you in the next video.